My name is Ishay Govender, and I'm here to facilitate a chat between three other women, and I think two of whom are still in the car. And we thought they would be interesting for you to see, because this is real life, isn't it? This is what it is to run a business and be an entrepreneur today. So we're waiting for Janine to join us, but in the meantime, let me just tell you very briefly about our topic. So we're looking at women in beverage, access, opportunities, and the road to success. I would like our participants to introduce themselves to you and tell you where in the beverage world in South Africa they fall. Apiwe, would you like to start, please?
Sorry, I'm stuck in a car. I was actually driving from a meeting to another meeting, and I lost track of time, and you know how it is. For those who don't know me, my name is Apiwe Nxusani-Mawela. I am a brewmaster based in Johannesburg. My brewery is in Roodepoort. It's called Brewster's Craft, where I do contract manufacturing of beer and ciders. I have my own brand. We do training and consulting within the space.
Welcome. Do we have Janine with us? I know she was in the back of an Uber trying to get to the next destination. In the meantime, Tuanni.
Hi, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet you, Apiwe. I can't wait to taste your beer. My name is Tuanni Price. I am originally from Los Angeles. I live in Cape Town, South Africa, and I curate wine lifestyles in both Cape Town and Los Angeles. I work with a couple of groups I do some volunteer work with, like PYDA and Black Cellar Club, and yes.
Fantastic. And Janine, who was in the back of a car trying to get to her destination. I think she could be with us now. Janine, are you there?
I'm here. I'm just trying to get my face back on the screen.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Here we go.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome, Janine. So if you could just tell us about who you are and what's your relationship to beverage in South Africa? Which part of the beverage world you fall in?
Well, I'm Janine Petersen, and I am the founder of J9 Wine. So I am a wine brand owner. So I've been running J9 Wine for the past 4.5 years, and we're based in Cape Town, South Africa.
Okay, great. So welcome, everybody. As you will see, we have women in beverage who are focusing on it from different aspects. And I would like to start off by chatting about the impact of the pandemic on your work, looking at the period February to now. Apiwe, would you like to update us on that, please?
When lockdown was announced in March, we as the alcohol industry were the most, I think all other industries affected. Full lockdown, not able to trade, not able to sell, not able to produce. So that was very, very difficult. And we just started now in beginning of June to be allowed some production and some trading. So still very, very tough. I mean, in my industry, there's people every day you have somebody who's closing down. It's still a very scary times. I was saying to somebody now that actually we're at a point where every day is a struggle. Every day you're trying to just survive and see what else, try push as much as you can. So it's very, very tough still. I think we're not over it yet, and probably for the next few months it's going to be still very difficult.
Yes, thank you, Janine.
Yes, on our side, I mean, as Apiwe was mentioning, we only opened 3 weeks in business, close to a month back in business. And I mean, the first few months that we were out of business, it was really, really tough because we had to find creative ways around trying to obviously survive during the time of lockdown. So yeah, I mean, we even dabbled into sort of creating little health packs, hygiene packs for call centers and corporates, and sold some hand sanitizer and masks during lockdown. And yeah, now we're just getting back into the swing of things, sort of finding our feet, getting the marketing and sales going again. So yeah, it's been tough. I guess it's been tough for everybody that's been in the beverage industry, especially in wine and beer.
Yeah. Tuanni, when we last, when we chatted back in, I think it was in March, when we were looking at the SAPOC at the table conference, the second one that was ready to go, and you were going to be part of that. And the very next day, you were expecting a really large number of clientele to arrive from the US, and things changed. So I thought maybe you could talk to us from that period in time to where you are now.
Yeah, so things changed literally in the matter of like 2 days, right? So people were coming,
Yes.
they had flights booked. I mean, I had hotels booked, safaris booked, everything booked. And, you know, and then all of a sudden people couldn't come. And at first I was like in denial. I was like, no, it's not that serious. Maybe it's just this part of the world. Come still. And then as things started to unfold day by day, I realized that this is not going to happen. So my entire schedule for the entire rest of the year is pretty much canceled, especially with the borders closed, because most of my business is it's tourists, it's Americans. Like I specialize in tourists that come from America, and I show them South Africa. So that's pretty much non-existent right now. But I was able to transition into teaching online courses, which have been great. It's not the same profit margins as the last one, or profits as the last tours, but at least
Right.
it's some kind of income coming in. Yeah.
Okay. And I thought you could just speak to us briefly about that pivot, because there was this moment, you remember you mentioned that it was 2 days that things changed, but there was a serious moment where I think there was a combination of deep confusion. Is this really happening? And what do we do next? And a lot of people have remained in that what do we do next phase, and that's simply because there's been no precedent. We're in completely uncharted territory still. But you pivoted. I know people have an objection to the word, but you were, a queen of pivot, and you did that. So what? And specifically, you went online. So you took so many of the things in wine and took your business and decided, I'm going to do this online. Can you share what inspired that? Were you seeing other people doing it?
No, so don't get me wrong. There was a moment like during this whole transition in March where, I had to mourn for the business that I had. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to make income? And it was very scary. And I like to be authentic with my emotions. I was scared. I was nervous. Everything was unclear. I was confused. But then at the same time, I was like, okay, Tuanni, enough of this. What are you going to do to make money? And then I just thought to myself, okay, whatever I'm doing in person, why can't I do that online? I literally said, why can't I do it? And I think I had thought about that before, having online wine courses, but I never really was pushed or forced to actually do it. So luckily I had all my documentation in order already. So then it was just a matter of writing some courses and then finding platforms to actually sell those courses. And yeah, so that was the pivot for me, but it was either that or starve.
Yeah. So one speaks about thinking on one's feet, but at the same time, there's a fair amount of preparation that needs to happen in any event. Like you said, you had your papers ready. And Janine, you mentioned that you went into producing sanitizer and hygiene kits and that kind of thing in the industry. So I'd like us to just go back a little bit now. When you think back, what was your very first impression of wine and beer, your own personal experience of encountering it, and how did your family feel when they heard about this desire of yours to pursue an alcohol-based profession? Of course, I mentioned that taking into account, some of us come from certain cultural and religious backgrounds, particularly amongst people of color, where the consumption of alcohol is quite fraught, especially amongst older folks. Apiwe, would you like to start us on this?
Yeah, I think, like you said, being in the alcohol industry, till today for me, there are certain family members who still have an issue with me being in the alcohol space. So when I got into the industry, it was actually started back when I was still in high school, when I wanted to study. I was into sciences. So after high school, I told my dad that I was going to do microbiology. And for him, it was like, okay, fine, what is that? So I had to explain what the study of microorganisms, the study of biotechnology, how we can use microorganisms for the products we consume everyday life. And for him, his first question was like, where are you going to work? I'm like, I'm probably going to work for SAP. And he's like, okay, they pay good money, it's fine. Because at that time, I mean, I was not, I mean, till today, I wouldn't call myself a drinker. I'm an appreciator of the product. So at that time, I had never touched beer in my life. It was purely for the sciences. And obviously, as I got into the industry, getting to then appreciate the flavors, appreciate not just beer, but all fermented beverages, you know. So I still get that funny look. I mean, if you go to a pub, I think as a woman who happens to be black, it's just one of those things that people tend to give you that eye, like, what are you doing? Because as we all know, there's a lot of negativity associated with women that drink. So this way we started, as the women in the beer space, we started a group. We've got a group on Facebook called She Loves Beer. And we've done some campaigns in the previous Women's Month, where we actually want to celebrate and showcase to people that, you know what, it's okay. It's no, it's in most cultures not a norm, but we hope that one day it will become like, it's okay, you know. If you want to have a beer, you should have a beer. If you want to have wine, you should have wine, whether you're woman or not, whether you're black or white. You should be free to do what you, I mean, we are in how many years of our democracy, and we still find I mean, like I said earlier, a lot of people looking down and questioning such things.
Yes, and if we look at the beer making space, so I'm just going to interrupt quickly to welcome other people who have joined us. You know, we're speaking about women in beverage in South Africa. We're looking at access, opportunity, and the road to success, and we're looking at it from three different perspectives. I want to say, when it comes to beer making in terms of traditional beer making, as far as I understand, a lot of women are involved in the making of the beer, perhaps not in the partaking, but in the making.
Yes, traditionally in I would say most African traditions or cultures, it's the women that are actually the brewers. It's been like that for years. Even the brewing itself, it's actually taboo for a man to make it, but they are the ones who drink it. So it is still something. And for me, I mean, today, I mean, when I started my journey in the brewing industry, I didn't care much about traditional brewing. I mean, like, I used to see my mom and grandmothers and them doing it. It's like, it's for the old people. And as I then got to master the Western ways of making beer and the principles of beer making, I got more and more intrigued in the traditional ways, in the African ways, because I was like, you know what, my ancestors have been doing this for centuries, and without any written science, without understanding what happens when and how, but they knew that to get a good brew out, you have to follow certain basic brewing principles. And for me, that just made the whole my journey in brewing so much more fulfilling.
And Apiwe, just on this topic, can you just situate yourself for us, for those who are unfamiliar? You have a company that is majority black female brewers, am I right? Yes. And you were one of the first, or the first black female master brewer?
So I know there are many other master brewers in the continent who are across the globe, obviously, who are black. And that's always I cringe whenever I see some of these headlines on the media, because sometimes people, I mean, media goes with what they think will sell, what people want to see. And but there are many other women who are master brewers. So the first comes in the first to actually set up my own brewery.
And in South Africa specifically?
Yes, in South Africa specifically.
Okay, great, thanks. Janine? Your experience with your family's views on alcohol and your first experience of wine.
Well, let's not even go there. My mom is like a staunch Christian. So I had to break it down and say, what? Look here, God's first miracle was turning water into wine. Let's take it back to basics. So yes, it was an interesting sort of transition from corporate getting into the business space and trying to explain to your family that I'm no longer waking up for a boss, but I'm waking up because I am the boss. That's why I'm waking up now. So that was a big mind shift, because I come from a predominantly traditional family background where people need to wake up and go work for a boss. That is how they grew up, and that is what they were taught. And me going into the entrepreneurial space, and more so into wine when I come from a Christian family, was also a really big deal. But I fell in love with wine. I mean, my family is from Franschhoek. They worked the land for many decades and generations. So I think it's part of our heritage, and it's something that it just like I embraced. So when I got into the wine space, it just came naturally to me to sort of advance myself in the space. I started merely with doing tastings like Tuanni, started doing marketing for bigger guys in the wine industry.
Janine, have you frozen, or is it just my side?
I see she's frozen on my side too. I think it's her.
Okay, so as soon as Janine defrosts, we will continue with her journey with alcohol and wine. Tuanni, what about yours? Do you come from a wine drinking family?
My mom, I tell people all the time, my mom used to drink jug wine. So I come from a family that wasn't opposed to like alcohol being around and, drinking alcohol. And my parents didn't have a problem with that. But like Janine's family, my parents had a problem with the fact that I was being an entrepreneur and not working in corporate America. I worked in corporate America for years, and I had a great career in corporate America. And their thing was like, how can you, these people love you, and I don't mean to sound like this, but those white people love you, Tuanni. They just love you. You get jobs so easily. That was what they literally would say to me. Like, how can you walk away from corporate America? They love you. They pay you well. Why are you leaving the nest of corporate America? That was the biggest complaint that I had.
Okay, great. So welcome to other people who have just joined us. I'm just letting you in. Again, if you're not a panelist, please keep your microphone on mute. I think Janine may have defrosted.
Oh,
you
yeah,
back with us?
Defrosted.
You froze there temporarily. So yeah, you were saying, please continue.
Yes, I was saying that I also did the wine tasting, and I did more work more on the marketing side in the wine industry, and then just decided to advance myself and start my own brand within the wine space. I mean, it's merely my network that got me to where I am. I think I was lucky enough to have a basis within the wine industry, and I leverage off that basis. And, I didn't have money in my bank account, to be honest. Like, people would always ask, so how do you start a wine business? You need starting capital. I sold my car, which was my only asset that I owned at the time. Took the little savings that I had and invested into J9. And then my network pulled together, and this is what we have created. So I think that that's one of the most important lessons I've learned early in my business, is that you're only as strong as your network.
Right. Yes, a good lesson to pick up. But of course, developing a network and nurturing one takes a lot of time and effort. And when one is completely busy in the business of making the beverage, that is something that requires. And I know to this end, you actually work with a partner specifically regarding network and marketing. So maybe you could just very briefly about that.
Yes, so I think I was in my second year of business when I brought Kris on board, and she's my business partner now. And when I brought her on board, the only reason why I brought Kris on board is because she made me feel so uncomfortable. And it takes a lot to make me feel uncomfortable, and she made me feel super uncomfortable. And I'm like, this feels uncomfortable, but it feels good. It must be growth, because they always say, growth is uncomfortable. And I brought her on board for the mere fact that she brought a whole different dynamic to J9. She could see where I couldn't see, and that for me was important. And I think for those out there that's looking at partnerships, it's always good to look at someone that would be able to bring a whole different dynamic to your business, that would be able to take the foundation that you've built to your business and take it to the next level.
Great. So I would like to know from all of you about the steps that you embarked on to run an independent venture, if you are wholly independent. Of course, if you're not and you're working in collaboration with others, then you could fill us in on that as well. Apiwe.
Sorry, can you please repeat that? I was just trying to...
So, yeah, no worries. So the steps that you took to embark on an independent venture, that is,
okay,
if you are completely independent or not, maybe you could just walk us through some of that.
Okay. Like I said earlier, my journey into brewing was through the sciences. I then got into SAB, to work for SAB. I got in through the graduate recruitment program. I trained as a brewer, so they would take you through 18 months traineeship program. I worked at the company, did my master brewer qualification. And then I left in 2015, started a brewery with, there was 5 of us that got together to start the brewery, which was based in Kyalami. So I was involved from the brewing technical side. So there was somebody else who was managing like the financials and the other side of the business. Then I went fully independent in when I got actually got a loan from the IDC to set up my own facility. So that, that was a year-long process, going through the applications, them vetting and checking and this and that. So I finally set up my own place 2 years ago. Yeah, so we're in our second year now. And now things have changed, because now I'm not just a brewer, so it's different. It's now you're a business person. Now you have to worry. Like it's month end now. My stress is you look at me smiling now, but I am stressing. Month end stress is killing me, because people want to be paid. Everybody expects their monies. Landlord here wants their money, because obviously we're coming from the lockdown. One of the things I managed to get from my landlord was we negotiated rental through the lockdown. But now it's time to pay back. I can't expect a free rental forever. So it's just crazy, just juggling. On one side you have to juggle sales, you have to keep track where you're selling, how much, where do you need to move stock, where do you need distribution, logistics. So it's just a whole different, it's no longer just about being a brewer. So I think for me, I've in the last 2 years, I think every day I just learned something different. So before I was just a brewer who had to worry about making sure that all the beers are of quality. Now I have to worry about everything else. Worry about procuring raw materials, worrying about, do we have enough stock? Do we have money? Do we have, it's just crazy. But it's I wouldn't change any of it. I'm enjoying every minute of it, and then I just keeps pushing me to grow more and to learn more, and look at more interesting and exciting ways of growing the company.
Apiwe, there was something that you mentioned that I'm particularly interested in. You said there was this moment and the 5 of you decided to start something, but I'm so curious to know, what inspired that? What was it about starting something of your own or in collaboration with these 5 friends that appealed to you? Did you always know you wanted to run something of your own?
No, not really. To be honest, I think it's a combination of things. When you when you look back in life, sometimes, I'm sure everybody does this, there's certain things that happen through your life that that kind of push you or direct you towards something that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So for me, I come from a family that is very entrepreneurial. My dad used to be a teacher and left teaching to start his own business back in when I was still in varsity. And I've got an aunt who probably worked corporate for a year, 2 years, and then she started her own firm. And then I grew up obviously surrounded by these people that were doing great things. And then when I was at SAB, I got employed as a craft brewer for the company, which meant I got exposed to the craft beer space. So I got to not only push my limits as a brewer, so as in that role, I was required to develop my own recipes, not just the normal beers that the company used to make. So that then obviously opened up the world of different styles, the world of different tastes, the world of, and then I got to meet other people who had started their own craft breweries, and then I got to see the other side of the beer space, you know. And then as I started to read more, understanding globally what's happening within the craft beer industry, so it was a combination of all those things. And then people keep on asking me, when are you starting your own brewery? And even when I was part of the partnership, I still had people copying asking for Apiwe, why don't you just start your own thing? And I know, but you know, you always kind of come up with excuses, but this, but that, but this, but that, and then until you just, you know, do it and try push as much as you can to get it done.
Thank you. And Tuanni, in your case, what were the steps that you followed to run this business independently? I think you may be on mute, Tuanni.
So I started this business, and because like Apiwe, people were saying, oh, you should start a business. You're so great at talking about wine and making people feel comfortable. And I was doing these tastings in my home and at friends' houses where I would just pair wine with food, and they said you should start it for a business. And I just thought about what kind of business can I start? What can I do? And literally, I guess this is like my thing. Whatever I'm doing in real life, I just do it. So I kind of said, okay, well, I'm going to people's houses. Let me just write a business plan based on that. So my original product was in-home wine tastings. And I partner with some great like platforms to actually promote my business and sell my business, and then that's how it just kind of like got off the ground. But I basically just whatever I was doing in real life, I just wrote that down on paper. That became my business plan and filled in all the blanks.
As you went along.
As I went along, yes.
And how about you, Janine?
Well, I started my business from mere frustration from working in corporate. I would say that it was just so frustrating not being able to, you know, live to your full potential. I just felt so caged, and I started a business out of frustration. I started a company called Jenny Bird in 2013, I think, if I stand correct. I started it, and I started doing tastings for the wine industry, and I started enjoying it. It was my moonlight job, and it paid me well. And I'm like, what? I can do this on a permanent basis. And then I decided to fire my boss in 2015. In 2016, I developed my own brand. And in 2018, I had the opportunity to take J9 Wine internationally with Westgrow, and I went on trade shows, and I started getting international exposure for J9 Wine. I brought Kris on board in 2018, and yeah, we just kept on growing and growing, and we ended up, you know, I would always say from Cape Town to Asia, we just grow our brand, and I think that the biggest thing that we have not anticipated was the level of independence that we were forced into during the early stages of our business, because I mean, financially, you literally dependent on yourself. A lot of people, have the government cushion and all these little safety nets that they have. You can go to your uncle, but we literally had to climb and claw our way into independence. And that for us was important, for us to have our independence within our business.
Yes, and I always find the journey to that place really fascinating. So let us speak about access now. I'm very interested in knowing, and I want to encourage anyone who's listening to the chat to please contribute to the chat box if you're interested in pursuing a career or in beer, in wine, in spirits, or perhaps you have specific questions for the women who have joined us today. Please get onto the chat box and leave your comments there. But when we're speaking about access, I'm interested in knowing, were there any barriers to entry for you that you faced personally? And what did you, and also, do you notice things that other women perhaps are contending with currently? And of course, we would love to know how you overcame it. If you did, if you're still contending with it, let us know. Apiwe?
Barriers. For me, there's so many. I think that the apart from obviously financially, I think everybody struggles financially. I don't think, as Janine has said, you're moving from having a comfortable life. I left SAB having, the petrol cards, not have to worry about anything. You were sure that come month end, my money is there, to a point where now you're not even sure where what is going to come from. I think that is obviously the biggest one for everyone. Personally, for me, also, I think being Black in my industry, I think in the wine space, not to say you guys don't have your own struggles, there's more of you. So the struggle is not as I would say as much as we do on our side. I remember the one incident that I will never ever forget, when I was still at my previous brewery. There was a lady who came, it was actually a guy who came in and wanted to speak to whoever in charge. I'm like, yeah, I can help you. And they're like, no, I'm looking for somebody in charge. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I am that person. It's like, no, I'm looking for the owners. I'm like, yes, can I help you? And I think for them, they could not comprehend that you could have this. And you've seen me face to face, you notice I'm quite short, so you think I'm this small child, Black child who says they own this facility, and looking back, I proudly told them, you know what, deal with it. If you have a problem, then go find this white person that you obviously want to see, who is not me. So it's either I help you or you go find this person. I think that's a struggle every other Black person still finds in the country, which is very sad, because I think we should be at a point where, and I always tell people, for me, this whole first Black thing is, I cringe whenever people say it, whenever I see on headlines, because I don't honestly believe we should be still celebrating such things in 2020. It should be a norm, and as such, it's something that I have dedicated my time to make sure that I'm not just the first and the last, that there's many more that would open up their own breweries. There are many more Black women that are within the beverage space. So yeah, I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. I want to just, delve in just a little bit here. You mentioned the Facebook page that you have that encourage, sort of for women, or at least it's a space that that encourages beer drinking, or you speak about it. In terms of women beer makers in South Africa, specifically Black women beer makers, have you seen this grow? Have you seen your circle of contemporaries grow in the last few years?
So interestingly, the big companies went through a drive of employing more Black women, and I was doing my getting into the industry was during that era where they were going out looking for more and more Black women, and I think it's something that they still continue to do. to this day. So you still find that there's more and more women getting into the beer industry within the big companies, but within the craft beer space, so the small producers, so that's something that is still very, very much lacking. So if anybody is listening out there, we need more women. I think in general, women, not even looking at Black women. I think our industry in our craft beer industry is, I mean, you can literally count the number of women that are in the industry, and I'm hoping it's something that changes. And I think the other problem that I've found is that even the young girls that might be interested, one of them think it's easy. They think it's just an easy way of making money because everybody drinks. I mean, you look at in South Africa at the moment, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, people everywhere are drinking, and you start counting. If I was to just sell to that one township, I'll be a millionaire, and not actually look at what it takes to run the business, what it takes to, I mean, brewing is not easy, similar to winemaking. You have to, if you are a person who's going to come in with your nails done and your eyebrows on fleek and stilettos, and this is not the industry for you. You know, we get dirty. If you have to climb into a tank, we climb inside a tank. If you have to scrub something with your hands, you're gonna have to scrub. So you have to be that kind of person that doesn't mind getting down and dirty, who still, once you get down and dirty, you can still stand up and look presentable and talk about your product and still show the passion. So what I've found is that there's many companies within even the craft beer space who look to employ women, and they'll ask me, Apiwe, do you know any girl I really want to employ? I've got a position, I really want to employ a woman, but can't find them. Even those that do come for interviews don't have that passion, because in the space we're in, you it's not just about having a job, it's not just about thinking you're going to make money. You really have to do it because it comes from deep down.
Yes, and there's a physicality to this job as well. Apiwe, on this note, at the end, all of you, please share your details of how people can contact you. There has been a request, there was a request earlier from Karina to find out more about your details. So if it does slip my mind, please make sure that you share these details. So Janine, could you also please share a little bit about, what have been some of the barriers to entry and how you overcame that? I think you covered a little in terms of
Apiwe covered what I think most of us go through within the industry, in the beverage industry. It's color, it's the fact that you're female, it's the fact that you're young. Sometimes even your eagerness and ambition becomes a threat within the industry. And sitting at a table, they would literally say, like, I have heard it, little girl, what are you doing here? You should be happy that you have a seat at this table right now. So, and our industry, as you know, is predominantly white male. And, it's just the whole dynamic of not having accepting the fact that we are here and there's a space for us as young Black females within the wine and beer space, whichever it would be. But I think that was the first barrier. And then you have the barrier where the markets are monopolized, where you go talk to Checkers and you go talk to the Pick and Pays and you go talk to the bigger guys, and they want to put you through a whole program before putting your product on their shelves, where if your skin color is different and your gender is different, the story becomes a different story. So that is one of the big things. And even on the international platforms, when you deal with the bigger industry guys that are responsible for marketing internationally, you also have to do a bit of extra to be able to have your product being marketed internationally under the South African banner. So there is quite a lot of, politics that comes with, especially the wine industry. It's completely politicized. So it's who do you belong to? Which clique are you with? Which group are you? And I was like, I'm not here for the politics, guys. I'm here for the profits, and I'm here to make a change, and this, I don't understand this dynamic. And you just have to be resilient and overcome. Because
I can just imagine the mental toll that takes and sort of the regrouping that is needed in the background, when you go through interactions and also altercations such as those. So the industry aside, there have been lots of misconceptions and prejudices that I know people in beverage have had to deal with when it comes to the wider community as well. I would love, I know, Apiwe, you started telling us a little bit about the family situation and your dad saying, well, if it's for SAB and it's a stable income, that's fine. And you've also just explained now when somebody comes in and basically wants to speak to the manager and is surprised that it is you. But when we look at these general misconceptions and prejudices, what do you think we as a society need to kind of, get rid of them or to change things?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I personally think like we need to talk more about it and normalize it. It must not be something that is, like I said, in 2020. I personally think it should be a norm. I know it's not because of our past, but we need to get to a point where I think the more we talk about it, the more we make people aware. Like, so one of the things I do is also go to schools. So I go to high schools and talk to 11 learners to actually make them aware that there is a study called biotechnology, that you can become a winemaker, you can become a brewer, you can become a cheesemaker, from your study. It's a career. So people don't see the alcohol industry from only the consumer point of view, where obviously we have all the other issues in the country around the social ills and the abuse and. But the more we make it, we show the good side of it, and that the fact that the making of the product can be done by anybody. It doesn't have to be white male in a big factory. So anybody can do it and make it a norm. And I think that in that way, slowly but surely, we should probably get there. Yeah. I don't know what the other ladies have said.
There's a science as well. I mean, that's a huge component of the beverages that both of you are making. And I think that if anything, that could be something that could be appealing to students, I also would like to know, Tuanni, so I know that in our previous discussions, your experiences have been slightly different in terms of your reception here in South Africa. And I know that we have been speaking constantly and sharing articles about what is going on in the US at the moment in terms of the changes in the wine and the food space, and the space that has been created in media to dissect these things and speak openly about discrimination, about who is given space and why and how. I thought you would like to just address that a little bit as well in terms of both how Black winemakers, Black wine facilitators are perceived in the US and here.
So I think that the perception is we're always having to prove ourselves, right? And so I think that the perception is maybe we're not as qualified, we're not as educated, or maybe we're not as valued. And I think that shows in the way that we're paid. So for example, if you're a worker and you work in the industry, you might be paid less than somebody who's a sommelier, who's not Black, who's non-colored. And I think that to help this, both parties have to take responsibility, right? And I don't mean to bash non-Black people and say, hey, it's your fault, you're a problem and this and that. But I do think that, in this space of open conversation, and if you really do want to make a change, you really have to look at, if you have a restaurant, for example, are you paying your people fairly? If you have a black Sam and a white Sam, are they getting equal pay for the same job? And you have to have those conversations. I know I showed up for a Sam job here in South Africa. This guy hired me for this one restaurant, Infusion on Long. I will call them out because this really did happen. But they hired me and they said, we're having this private party and we need a sommelier. And when you say sommelier is a certified person who studied wine, who's put money into their education, right? So I show up as this sommelier and I do a great job, which I usually do. And at the end of the night, we say, okay, let's settle up. I'll call you tomorrow. I call the guy the next day, the chef, the head chef. And he's like, oh, well, that wasn't a paid gig. I thought you were just going to show up, right? And so my whole point in telling that story is I felt like I was treated like that because I was black. And he treated me like that. How many other black people are getting treated like that? Like they're doing work and they're not getting paid for it. And at the end of the day, if you're an employer, whether you're white or you're black, mostly I think it's a lot of white employers who do that. Look at yourself and say, how in the world do you think that this is right? Do you think that I don't eat? Do you think that I don't live and I need money for rent, for food, for, shoot, a movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Black people need to be paid. And that's my biggest thing. It's like, let's have these conversations and let's not be afraid to have these conversations. Let's not be afraid to say, hey, listen, take a look at yourself and see what you're doing. Yeah, you can say, well, you know what? I donate to this cause and I donate to that cause. So that's great. But do you pay your people fairly? Bottom line. Yeah. Do you employ people fairly? Bottom line. If I come into your facility and it's all white waiters or white sommeliers, I'm going to say, okay, this is a country that's 90% black. Why don't you have a head sommelier who's black? You're telling me out of this entire population you can't find not one qualified black person? I don't believe it. I call BS. So that's what I say to people. Let's have these open conversations. Let's not be afraid to take responsibility and then make changes.
Yes, and so if you look at the stats that were shared with us recently about from the Wine Guild, in terms of the number of people coming out through these programs, we know that there are numbers. There are numbers of people being trained on internships, so they exist. And there is such a danger in getting stuck on just simply the diversity and inclusivity equation, part of the equation, because what we're missing from that picture is what you just brought up, and that's the, equality in terms of being paid wages, fair wages that you are worth, and wages that will keep you. Because as long as we keep people in these positions where they're shackled to a very poor wage, sooner or later, people are going to go into, the business side of things, as we've seen with a lot of black wine professionals, because simply being a sommelier is not sufficient to, never mind make it, to live a generously wealthy lifestyle, but to live a basic lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so I think we know that a lot of people want to see more black professionals in the restaurant, in the beverage spaces, but that inclusivity really has to tie in on every level and fulfill what equality is supposed to be. I want to also just quickly move on to opportunities that have happened in the trajectory of your career that help to shape your business into the success that it is today. Janine, would you like to share any particular opportunity that you have enjoyed?
Well, I would say the opportunity to travel. I think that's one of the major things that wine has allowed us to do, is to be able to travel and see the world from a different perspective. It opened our minds, our vision became clearer, and that's how we found our independence, because we realized that there's a bigger world out here. Wait, it's not just South Africa. It's a huge world. And I mean, with that, we came back with determination to make changes within our business, within ourselves as well, personal growth as well. And we partnered up with blue chip companies, and we're now able to open our own wine, probably the very first digital wine dispensing shop in Africa at Cape Town International Airport. So, I mean, for us, we had to have a complete mind shift for us to be able to tap into these benefits, to be able to achieve what we're achieving now, where we will be tapping into robotics, 4IR, where we will be able to now plow back into those that are plowing the land, the people that pick our grapes, those people that work in our cellars, those that help us to make our wine. How are we going to plow back? And that's what we have created now, a whole ecosystem of how would I say, like, we create our own lane. That's what we did. That's it.
And of course, I'm very curious to know more about this. And I think this is obviously this for a separate discussion. But when is this launching?
Well, due to COVID, we were supposed to launch on the 1st of October. We're supposed to move into our space, but due to COVID, it has been postponed to next year. But yeah, still moving forward.
Well, that's really, really interesting. Apiwe, were there any particular opportunities that you have enjoyed that have helped to shape your business?
I think for me, the biggest opportunity I've been at the privilege of enjoying was when I got the funding from the IDC. I mean, that was a journey. I mean, like I said earlier, it was a process that took over 12 months to go through the application process, and to finally be able to, I know it's a loan, but I mean, it has allowed me to put up the facility and actually be able to start this thing that I've started, and that has obviously opened up more opportunities for other Black peer entrepreneurs, because my facility, I mean, one of the things for me, one of the issues I have, I mean, we talk, but and government says all these things that they're about promoting Black industrialists, about but there's always that one big issue that, I mean, as Black people, we don't have money, we don't have access to funds to set our own facilities. So with my brewery, I wanted a place where other young brewers, people that want to get into the industry, can come and contract manufacture their products to a point where they can then also go back to the likes of IGCs and other investors and actually set up their own facilities. Because what I learned is that when you start talking to investors and wanting people to support your dream and your vision, they always want to see that it works. You have to have proven concept before anybody can throw money at you or support you financially. So I mean, the opportunity that I was given, I've been able to obviously make sure that translates to opportunities for other people also.
Okay, so we have a number of things that we would love to get into, and of course, this is really how it works when one has an hour, and we've also got some lovely comments and questions that are on the chat. But I thought perhaps we could just, if everyone doesn't mind staying, just perhaps an extra 5 minutes or so, we could first just look at mentorship, because I think that is such an important that is such an important topic. If we look at inspirational figures, either in the industry or even outside the industry, who have, stayed in your mind as you do this work, as you grind, and perhaps people who have believed in you or helped you to believe more deeply in yourself. Speak to us very briefly, Janine, about mentorship. If you've had any in your career, and perhaps if you haven't, are you trying to mentor anybody?
Well, yes, I have mentors. I have Lee Griffin, who helped Stella Organic started their brand when they didn't even have a roof over their cellar. And Lee helped me quite a bit. And then I've got one of the ex-executives of APSA that's helping me more on the business side to understand more of the intricate business sort of side of J9 Wine and what it takes to actually run a business. So yes, I do have my mentors, and I do mentee. I mean, I love menteeing. I love mentoring. Sorry, if I should put it that way. We have a trend called #WineOfColorSA, where we collaborate with other brands, where we open up opportunities for those brands as well as a collective platform. So we also plow back into the industry, as well as those that want to start their own brand. We had a lot of requests from people coming to us saying, well, I want to start a wine business. And we would be able to tell them from A to Z what it takes to start a wine business. So these are the things that J9 Wine is doing on our side to actually sort of, our slogan for #WineOfColor is called Each One Raise One, where we sort of instill that it's everybody's responsibility to raise at least one person in your journey.
Fantastic. So Tuanni, I know that you yourself work very closely with those in the industry who require mentorship, and you gift your time very generously to the Black Sailor Club and to students. I know you have been hosting twice a week virtual tastings in quite a scholarly fashion. Could you tell us a little bit about any one particular person who has influenced your journey in terms of your business in wine, and a little bit about that giving back that you do in the mentoring that you do?
Yeah, so in Los Angeles, in California, there's this guy, Mac McDonald. He's like the grandfather, the godfather of Black people in the wine industry. He's a winemaker, and he's been in the business for a very long time. And so whenever I have a chance to talk to him, he talks to me about the business, and he talks to me about the platform, the politics, and the networking. And those conversations are so important to me. And I think that anytime I get to talk to anybody who's been in the business, it's just, it's great to share that knowledge. So, but he's probably the one, Mac McDonald from Vision Cellars. And then as far as me, providing that same landscape, I love what Janine just said. I was just so inspired. I was like, yes. I think that's probably the most important thing for me. It's not depending on outside help to, working with outside people, outside of colored people, to build this network of worth and wealth, but also making sure that we do our own part, right? So it doesn't take that much time to volunteer, to mentorship, to answer a few questions to people who want to get into the industry. And that's so important to me. And honestly, for me, the success that I have is when somebody calls me up and they say, you know what, I started my own business, whether it's a wine business or a soap business. They see me hustling, and they hear the conversations that I'm having, and then they say that they want to start their own business. So any one person who does that, I just feel super proud, and that's really what makes me feel successful in this business. And then networking with people who are my peers, like J9 Wines. I love whenever they call and they want me to do anything. I'm like, hey, how can I help? I can't wait to work with the Apiwe. I just really feel like it's so important for all of us to take our time out and help each other.
Yeah, and that's very much one of the rewards that we find, and I find personally working with SAPFC at the table. It's in creating these networks and in watching people's eyes light up as they realize, there's a craft beer maker here, and who happens to be a woman, and we have a lot in common, and how can we work together? So Apiwe, can you speak to us a little bit about mentorship in terms of any mentors that you've had, significant mentors that you've had in your career and your work as a mentor?
So I've had over the years met a few people who have helped shaped at different stages in life. So I think the people that have helped me and mentored me has always been based on a specific point in my journey, and there's a few not to mention, but they've all played a very significant role in help shaping. And I still have people that I would bounce off ideas with and just get the feel. And because, like I said earlier on, that for me, I mean, like if I was to die tomorrow, God forbid, but I wouldn't want to die as just me being the full stop, you know. That's what drives me. I really, really give all my all to make sure that there's a next generation of brewers. So my head brewer at the moment in my brewery is a woman, because I really, really believe that it has to start with us. So we can't just talk the talk and not do. We have to be the ones who actually do the work. So my head brewer is a woman, a lady that I've been mentoring from when she started her career in the beer space. And I've got some other ladies that I do mentor. I'm very passionate about, even from the young age. So my talks at high schools around brewing as a career option, around the sciences, but also around the dangers of alcohol abuse and underage drinking, because I think it's something that is still within our powers as the ones who own these brands, that we need to make sure that our brands land up in the right hands, and not just push volume and just want to make money, but there is a very big human element, and I mean, we all know some.
I think she's frozen.
Oh,
Yeah.
Somebody who has abused us at a very young age, and you just want to make sure that they obviously choose the right path and don't let alcohol damage their future.
yes. And I think on that note, there was a comment here about, I'm just trying to see if I can find that specifically, about the abuse of alcohol. We've got some really interesting questions that are coming up. Some of the questions sound like they're coming from journalists as well. And I think actually some of you have covered, all of you have covered aspects of those questions as well, but we're going to look at them very briefly. I know you're sitting in your car, Apiwe, and I don't want to hold you captive there.
People are probably people are wondering, why have I parked on the side of the road?
It's why you're speaking to yourself. Right? So I think, you know, we have a number of things that we would like to still get into, but what I'm going to do is ask one question before we take a very quick look at the comments and questions on the chat. And that is, you know, in terms of you're all young women, with dynamic businesses and, you know, clearly lots of dreams for the future. If you could share with us, what is your dream for your place in this beverage world? What would you like to see and achieve ultimately? Should someone have the ability to wave a magic wand and, you know, a big pot of funds your way? Janine, would you like to start?
Well, we definitely planning on franchising our shop internationally, more so into Asia. That is our biggest sort of journey that we're on now, is to make sure that we set up our shop and be able to franchise that shop into international markets, to make sure that South Africa has a international wine of color presence, so that everybody knows that Black people make wine. That's important.
Thank you, Janine. And Tuanni?
So one of the things that I do in Los Angeles is I showcase wine brands, liquor brands that are made by Black people. I'd love to be able to do that in South Africa and have like an annual festival that's super fabulous with like hundreds of people there that showcase these brands. And I'd also like to start training people so that I can expand my at-home wine tasting business here in South Africa, so that I can take Psalms maybe who are out of work right now and show them how to go into people's houses and entertain. So that's my ultimate goals.
Yes, post-COVID dreams, important.
Yes, post-COVID dreams.
So while I have you here, could you please, and I'm going to ask Janine to do the same before we move to Apiwe, please share one detail where people can find you, your website, something like that.
Google. You can Google Tuanni Price, and that will lead you in all directions to.
Okay, so they will get all your details.
All the details. It's probably too much. That's probably why I can't. That's too much. But yeah, just Google Tuanni Price.
Okay, Google Tuanni Price, 2 N's, and you will find her on all the socials. And Janine?
Okay, I'm back. Yes, so you can Google us, the same as Tuanni, Google J9 Wine, and Facebook J9 Wine, Instagram with J9 Wines. We run weekly competitions, we run weekly specials. Check out our level 3 special that we are running on our Merlot and our Chenin Blanc. And do join us for our online tastings. We're partnering with Tuanni Price on our online tastings. Do join us. It's an exciting time to do business, and I think that this is the time where collaborations is of utmost importance.
Thank you, Janine. And then just to clarify, that's J and 9, the symbol 9, the numerical 9, wines. And lastly, Apiwe, as we close our chat before we go on to looking at some of the questions as promised, could you please share what some of your dreams are in terms of your community and your business, and also your details?
So for me, one of my passions is around showcasing to the rest of the world what Africa has to offer. Not just I think if you go to any other part of the world, they are known for their beers. You go to Germany, you go to any part of Europe, they always have their own unique brewing style and their own unique beers. And you come to South Africa and it's the same thing that they left at home. So it's like they come here to experience Africa, but then they get the same old. So for me, I really, really want the world to know that we exist in South Africa. We exist in Africa, that we make as good products as anywhere else in the world. And for them to actually, people want to come out here to taste what we have. And for, obviously for all of us to take our products to the world and just showcase what we are capable of and what we can do. And then contacts, I also can Google me, but I'm quite active on Facebook and LinkedIn. I go by my name, Apiwe Nxusani-Mawela. I would post everything that I do. I would post and whatever products I'm working with, whatever collaborations I'm doing, I'll always post on. And I've got other social medias, but I'm very active on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I don't want to keep anyone. So if you have to go, you are absolutely welcome to. I'm going to go through some of the comments. If you have, I know that sitting in a car, in a different space, you may not have had a chance to read them. So I'm going to go through. We can't guarantee that our panelists have a chance to answer them. And I think they have answered some of these questions in some way. So Busi Malloy has asked a number of questions, and she was interested in knowing what the challenges of getting into the wine space were. And I think, Janine, you did cover that, and your vision for your brand, you've also covered that now. How do you differentiate your brand amongst all the sea of wines? So I know we don't have time to get into that, but that's something that maybe you can put out on your social media as well. Then Nirvani has shared that she's, when speaking specifically about the politics and some of the treatment that you've enjoyed, Janine, she says it exists in every sphere of business. Women of color have to grind twice as hard to get recognition, which is why this platform is so important. We'll call it horizontal integration. Busi also wanted to know about the craft beer industry, which she read in an article that it was saturated. And has that been your experience, Apiwe? And there were some questions directed to Tuanni, who I think Tuanni has answered Busi's question and Mule's question. There were a number of good questions there about monetizing wine tasting, but I think that's something Tuanni is going to answer privately, am I right? About pricing strategy. And your biggest preconceived idea that you came in that was disapproved in your experience, that was a question for you, Janine. And okay, what direction did you see your particular sector of the alcohol business going over the years? I think Apiwe, you did cover what you say to students when you go in there, go into schools, and the question here is about what advice do you have from a matriculant who wants to remain relevant by the time they graduate. I think that's a far bigger question, which of course would take a little, much more time, and we don't have that. And then I think for the rest, the ones that were directed specifically to Tuanni, you have answered. So I know that Janine, Tuanni, and Apiwe are very busy, but you have their details. And if there's anything very pressing that they really haven't covered in this panel, you can address it to them. Please know that this recording will be available on YouTube very shortly on our SAPOC at the Table channel. It's very small. Please go and follow us to support us. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, for being part of this community as well. I see there are more and more people wanting to join the chat, so I think they didn't quite get the GMT +2 for 12 o'clock. But that's very encouraging for us to know that people are interested in this topic and interested in your journey. So from me, Ishay Govender, and SAPOC at the Table, thank you so much. We look forward to following your journeys going forward. I want to also let everybody know that tomorrow we have a chat with Ruben Riffle, Karen Dudley, Portia Mbao, Coco Reynolds. We are going to be chatting about their lives in South African restaurant kitchens, looking back and looking forward. So that could be quite interesting because they are stalwarts in the industry, as you may know. That's happening at 2 o'clock tomorrow on Zoom, and we will share the codes in time. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone on the chat as well. Really appreciate the interaction. Bye-bye.
Bye.